The dog wouldn't move. He stood frozen at the witness stand, ears rigid, eyes locked on the empty chair where a girl once sat. It had been 24 hours since she vanished. The jury watched in silence. No one could explain why the K-9 had broken free from his handler, trotted to the front of the courtroom, and planted himself like stone beside the stand, refusing treats, commands, even his partner's voice. The judge tapped her gavel once. Then, as if on cue, the dog growled low and looked straight at the prosecutor. The town of Fairbridge was the kind of place where summer smelled like diesel and hay, and everybody still waved from their trucks. But when it rained, like it had that morning, something darker always crept out from the corners. Sheriff Clay Renner stood outside the courthouse, arms crossed, steam rising from the brim of his hat. His K-9 partner, Juno, a Belgian Malinois with rust-colored fur and a nasty bite, sat at his side, tense and silent. They weren't there for security. Not really. Inside, the people of Fairbridge were bracing for a reckoning. The case had rattled everyone. 14-year-old Lacey in Whitlow had gone missing 3 months ago. Her body hadn't been found, but her blood had, dried into the wood grain of a dock out at Crowder's Pond. Bits of her hair caught on splintered planks. And now her foster father, Evan Mallory, sat in a navy suit behind the defense table, his tie crooked, his posture too straight. He didn't look at anyone, not even the crowd behind him, especially not the woman in the second row, clutching a pink hoodie that didn't belong to her. The first witness had just been dismissed. The second, a forensic tech from Mason County, was taking the stand. That's when Juno moved. No sound, no growl, just a shift of weight and then motion, calculated, quiet, like a ghost cutting through pews. Juno, heel. Clay's voice was low but firm. The dog ignored him, walked past the defense, past the jury box, and straight up to the witness stand, not to the tech, but to the chair beside it, where the victim's chair would have been. And he sat, not like a dog trained to demonstrate or comfort. No, he planted himself the way he did at a set marker in the woods, body locked, gaze fixed, head tilted slightly, as if he were waiting. The judge, an older woman named Marnie Jessup, leaned forward. Sheriff. Clay rose from his seat. He whistled, clapped, snapped twice. Nothing. Juno didn't so much as blink. In the hallway during recess, Clay crouched beside his partner. What the hell is this, boy? You don't do courtroom antics. You're not a circus dog. Juno pressed his nose against the courtroom door and whined, short and sharp. What's in there, huh? Clay muttered. What do you know that I don't? He scratched the dog behind the ears and tried to mask the tremor in his hands. Juno only got like this when it was a scent trail, or when he felt danger. But the courtroom had been scrubbed clean. No body, no evidence left to sniff. And Juno hadn't been part of the forensic work. Clay stood slowly, unease curling in his gut. Inside the courtroom, Evan Mallory whispered something to his attorney and glanced, too quickly, toward the jury. Back in session, Juno was allowed to remain, officially for demonstration purposes. But he stayed silent and still, never turning his gaze from the witness chair. The next person called to testify was 16-year-old Avery Locke. She lived down the road from the Mallorys. Long sleeves in summer, thin voice, dry lips. When she sat, she flinched as the wooden chair creaked beneath her. Ms. Locke, the DA began. You told investigators you'd seen Mr. Mallory arguing with Lacey the week she disappeared. Can you clarify what you saw? Avery hesitated. Her hands tightened in her lap. I saw her crying. By the chicken coops. What was Mr. Mallory doing? He was yelling. He had her phone. Did he hit her? No, but he grabbed her. She jerked away. And then, I don't know. I just ran. The DA looked toward Juno, then back. Did you ever see Mr. Mallory go out to Crowder's Pond? Avery bit her lip. A tear slipped loose, but she didn't brush it away. Yes, 3 times. The last time was the night she went missing. The defense stood, objected. Hearsay, circumstantial, the usual. But Juno, still seated, let out a single growl, low and deliberate. A tremor passed through the courtroom. Judge Jessup narrowed her eyes. "Control your dog, Sheriff." "I'm trying, Your Honor," Clay said, though his voice was thin. That night, Clay didn't go home. He sat in his truck, parked beside the station, and stared at the tape recorder from Juno's training sessions. K-9 units didn't get courtroom instincts. They were nose and muscle. But Juno had been different since the Whitlow case. Restless, attentive to courtroom photos. Every time Lacey's image flashed, his ears perked. When her old shirt was brought in as evidence, he licked it and sat beside it like it was his handler. Clay hit play. He listened to the tapes. Hours of Juno's training logs. Detection drills. Search and rescue. His voice telling Juno to sit, stay, sniff. And then, on the most recent one, a recording from the day before the trial, there was something strange. Clay's voice muffled slightly. "Juno fine." Pause. Then a girl's voice, caught faintly on the edge of the mic. "Help me?" Clay sat up, rewound, listened again. The voice was real, soft, terrified. Not a sound from a speaker or TV. It wasn't Lacey's voice, but it was young, female, and alive. He replayed it a third time, leaning forward. That wasn't from the evidence bag. That was in the room. The next morning, Clay brought the recorder to the judge. "I need a recess in the trial," he said. "I need to check something. Something off book." Judge Jessup eyed him with caution. "We're too far in. Jury seated. You need a warrant or a goddamn miracle." Clay placed the recorder on her bench, played the tape. At 42 seconds, the voice whispered again, "Help me." The judge's lips parted. Her hand hovered near her mouth. "Where was this taken?" "Courthouse basement," Clay said. "Evidence room. Juno was with me." She looked toward the courtroom. Juno sat where he always had, at the stand, looking not at the witness box now, but at the floorboards beneath it. Clay pulled the floorboards that evening, after court adjourned. He didn't bring backup. Just a flashlight, pry bar, and his dog. The old courthouse had a trap space beneath the stand, a crawl cavity maybe 5 feet deep, used in the 1920s for cable work. The flashlight beam caught metal. A vent grate, torn, and hair, blonde. Juno barked once, loud, piercing. Clay dropped to his stomach and reached in. A whisper answered, "Don't let him know." The breath caught in Clay's lungs. He turned off the light, heart pounding. Somewhere behind the vent, just feet away, someone was alive and hiding. And then he knew. The courtroom wasn't just a stage for justice. It was part of the crime scene. The scream came right as the morning sun cracked over the hills. Not from the courtroom, not from Clay, from the crawl space. Clay had gone in on his belly. Juno stayed behind him, whining. The flashlight beam jittered over the narrow space, dust dancing like snow in a storm. At first, nothing, just wiring, some crumbled insulation. Then a movement, a face, pale, eyes wide as quarters. Dirt smudged along the cheekbones like bruises. She couldn't have been more than 12. "Hey," Clay whispered. "It's okay. I'm Sheriff Renner. My name's Clay. You're safe now." She shook her head slowly. He said, "No cops. No talking. No light." Clay looked behind him. Juno growled, barely audible, low in his throat. "How long have you been down here?" Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She just held up 5 fingers. 5 days? 5 weeks? No, 5 months. Clay's stomach turned. She wasn't Lacey and Whitlow, but she might as well have been. Same slight frame, same soft voice, same hollow stare. And someone had kept her there, under the damn courtroom. Clay kicked the judge's office door open at 7:12 a.m. Judge Jessup was still in her robe, a coffee cup trembling in one hand. She didn't ask why he looked like he crawled through a grave. "She's alive," he said. "Who?" "Not Lacey. Someone else. About 12. In the vent under the witness stand. She's dehydrated, probably concussed. She's scared of whoever put her there, and she won't talk until she's sure we don't tell him." Jesus, the judge breathed. "Does she know who?" "She didn't say. But I have a goddamn guess." At 8 a.m., the court resumed as if everything were normal. Clay stood at the back with Juno. The girl was at the hospital, being kept under observation. No news had leaked. Not yet. Evan Mallory sat with the same stiff posture, same empty eyes. His hands were folded tight, knuckles white. His defense attorney leaned in and whispered something. Then Clay noticed it. Mallory didn't glance toward the evidence table, or the jury, or even the judge. He looked down, to the floor, to the vent. The DA called in Avery again, this time with photo exhibits. Lacey at the fair, Lacey outside the house, and one image that hadn't been shown before, a blurry shot of Mallory standing behind a barn, cigarette glowing. Avery froze when she saw it. "I know that night," she said. She was crying again. He'd taken her necklace. "I saw him pocket it." "Did you report this to anyone?" "No one listened," she said, voice brittle. "Nobody ever does." The judge called recess, claiming judicial exhaustion. Clay caught her outside chambers. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked. Judge Jessup didn't answer, but her jaw was tight. "You knew something was wrong. Before any of this." She finally met his gaze. "I knew Lacey came to see me once. She left something." "What?" "A letter. I thought it was childish, angry teenage rambling. I never opened it." "Where is it?" "In my desk. Locked drawer." It wasn't childish. It was desperate. Clay read the letter in his patrol truck that night. Juno rested his chin on the console beside him. "Judge Jessup, if something happens to me, don't let Evan speak for me. He watches when I sleep. I caught him taking my clothes from the dryer. I tried to tell Miss Leah, but she said he's just strict. He smiles too much when nobody's looking. Lacey." Clay felt something crack behind his ribs. He looked at Juno. "We missed her. The whole town did." The dog whined, and then barked. The next morning, the town hall was half empty. Rain came down like gravel, hard and sharp. Clay stood at the front of the courtroom, soaked to the elbows, holding a letter. "I request that this be entered into evidence," he said, voice rough. "It's late. I know that, but it's from Lacey. Her handwriting. Her words." The judge read it. Slow, carefully. Mallory didn't move. Not even a blink. Then Clay did something unorthodox. He released Juno. No leash. The courtroom gasped as the dog padded forward, ignoring everyone just like before. But this time, he didn't go to the witness stand. He turned sharply, trotted past the defense, and sat right behind the prosecutor. The room fell silent, and Judge Jessup finally understood. That afternoon, Clay found her standing by the courthouse's broken boiler door. Rusted metal, cold pipes. She didn't turn when he approached. "There's a reason he never blinked," she said. Yeah, he wasn't worried about being found guilty. He was worried about something worse. "What's that?" "Being found out." She handed him a manila envelope. Inside, letters. Emails. Adoption papers. From Lacey's old foster homes. And a sealed report from a social worker named David Reimer. Clay flipped it open. 3 years ago, Mallory had fostered a different girl. Same age bracket. She'd gone missing after 6 months. The case was closed. Runaway. But Reimer had written one note in the margins. Too quiet. Child didn't pack anything. No money missing. Just gone. Recommend reevaluation of Evan Mallory's approval. Never signed. Never sent. Clay stared at the bottom corner. The form had been stamped with a name. ADA Barrett Rowe. The prosecutor. The man Juno had just pointed to. Clay drove to the hospital after dusk. The girl, her name was Willow, sat propped in bed, eating dry toast. She turned her face slowly when he entered. "He didn't tell me his name," she said, "but he wore suits. Sometimes he smelled like whiskey." Clay showed her a photo of Mallory. She shook her head. Then he showed her Rowe. Willow stared. Her lips parted. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the one who locked the vent. He said I had to wait until it was over." Clay's chest went cold. Until what was over? Willow swallowed hard. The trial? That night, the judge issued an emergency bench warrant. The courtroom was cleared. Rowe never made out the front doors. Clay caught him in the parking lot, hands shaking, suit jacket half off. He said nothing, didn't even try to deny it. You buried her voice, Clay said. All of them. You used Mallory to do the dirt. You silenced Reimer. You let Lacey die. Rowe looked away. I thought if I buried it deep enough. He didn't finish. Juno growled once. Not for show, not for threat, just grief. They never found Lacey's body. Mallory pled out. Turn over evidence in exchange for a cell far from general population. Rowe? He went quiet in custody. No press, no defense, no emotion. He just sat and stared at the vent in the holding cell, the same way Juno had. Judge Jessup retired. Avery Locke left town, changed her name, and started over in Minnesota. Sheriff Clay Renner stayed, patrolled the roads, watched the fog roll, and each dawn, Juno got older, slower. But every time they passed courthouse, he'd pause, look toward the bricks, waiting, watching, remembering. The courtroom sat empty now. No jury, no judge, no reporters fanning their notebooks in the back row, hungry for the next headline. Just Clay and Juno, alone in the echo. It had been 3 months since the arrest, 2 since the plea deal, 1 since the girl, Willow, left the hospital under a sealed identity protection order. Clay had tried to visit once. Her new guardian refused, said it would confuse her, set back the progress. He didn't argue. There are some goodbyes you don't earn, just ones you carry. Juno padded quietly to the front of courtroom. He didn't go to the defense table or the prosecutor's chair. He stood once more at the witness stand and sat exactly where Lacey would have testified if she'd lived. Clay leaned on the wooden rail. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, casting sharp beams that cut across the room like blades. Still holding court, huh? He said softly. Juno didn't move, didn't blink, just breathed. The final case notes had been buried in red tape, but Clay had them now. Judge Jessup made sure of that before she left town. A parting envelope, handed off in the dead of night like contraband. Inside, sealed interviews, missing reports from a closed case in 2016. Different girl, same prosecutor, different town, same pattern. Juno had been right all along. He hadn't sniffed guilt. He'd scented pattern, routine, the rhythm of harm. On a hunch, Clay visited Lacey's last foster home, before the Malloris, a ranch house half-sunk into a wind-battered hill off Hollow Creek Road. The couple who lived there had long since moved, left behind some broken toys, a rusted trampoline, and a chicken coop that collapsed under the weight of 3 winters. Clay circled the coop, hand at his side. Juno stiffened, then walked to the back, where the ground dipped slightly, where the grass had grown in wrong. Clay got down on one knee. The scent hit hard, sour, metallic, old. Not death, fear. Juno barked twice. They started digging. 3 feet down, they found a tangle of rope, a baby shoe, and a blue plastic bracelet, cracked in 2. Lacey's name still barely visible on the inside. She'd never made it past this house. Mallory hadn't moved her. She'd been dead before the trial ever began. And someone, more than one someone, had known. The betrayal was deeper than a courtroom cover-up. The system had eaten her whole. The judge who ignored the letter. The social worker who resigned instead of speaking up. The prosecutor who shaped truth like a sculptor, carving out the ugly pieces to keep his story clean. But Juno had remembered what they forgot, that a girl's truth doesn't vanish because she's gone. It lingers, in crawl spaces, in evidence rooms, in the floor, beneath your feet. Avery came back for the memorial. Clay didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was short now, her voice a little stronger. They stood near the new plaque outside the courthouse. In memory of Lacey and Whitlow, 2009 to 2023. She deserved to be heard. She used to sing when no one was listening. Avery said, staring at the name. In the chicken coop, Off-key but pretty. I remember thinking she sounded like she didn't care who was watching. Clay nodded. That's how people ought to live. She didn't get to. No, he said. She didn't. They stood in silence a while. The wind moved across the fields like a breath held too long. Then let go. Avery crouched to scratch behind Juno's ears. He leaned into it. She trusted him. She said, I did too, Clay admitted. Willow's going to therapy, Avery added. She's afraid of ceilings now. Says she can't sleep unless she sees stars. Clay looked up. Just clouds today. But they were moving. Later that month, Clay handed in his badge. Not in ceremony. Not with speeches. He placed it on Jessup's old desk, now empty, and turned to leave. Juno followed, limping slightly now, hip-stiff with age. They stopped once more at the witness stand. Clay knelt beside him. You did more than anyone else in that room, partner. Juno looked up, eyes glassy but aware. Clay rested a hand on his back. She was never alone. You made sure of that. The dog blinked slowly, exhaled through his nose, pressed his forehead to Clay's knee. They stayed like that a long time. No words, no movement, just memory, just truth. 1 year later, the courtroom became a children's literacy center. Bright rugs, chalkboard walls, tiny shelves with books whose spines glowed like stained glass. There was a reading bench where the jury box used to be, and near the front, where the witness stand had stood, a carved wooden plaque read, Some things don't need to be spoken to be believed. Dedicated to Juno, K9 Unit Number 147. A little boy sat cross-legged beneath it, tracing the letters with his thumb. He didn't know the whole story, but the dog in the painting above the plaque, ears high, eyes steady, made him feel safe. And maybe that was enough.